So our session, and this is a great follow-up session to the last one that Matt Stillwell just did with us. So our next session is creating the conditions for student voice and agency in online learning, which, come on, we were talking about in our last session. If AI can do everything, like what are we needed for? And really, what will the students be doing? And our presenters are Dr. Heather Young from the University of Florida, Debra Olbeding from Yellowdig, Victoria Dela Cruz from Yellowdig, and Alexandra Puilen from Yellowdig. And what they're going to be presenting on is empowering students to share their voices and take ownership of their learning is key to building meaningful online experiences. The session will explore strategies and tools for fostering student agency in digital classrooms, highlighting practices that encourage authentic participation, collaboration, and self-directed learning. That's it. All what we were talking about with Vygotsky and social constructivism. Attendees will gain practical experience in creating supportive online environments where learners feel heard, valued, and motivated to engage. So, without further ado, whoever would like to go first from this group, and feel free to take over the screen.
Okay, hello everyone. Yes, Belinda, I believe, is going to share our information and we will get going. So here we are, meet our speakers. We'll do a quick introduction for creating conditions for student voice and agency in online learning. Thank you so much for being here. I just caught the end of the session before, and there was a lot of the word human connection, even in the AI world. So I think you'll be refreshed after the session to know it can, it is, and will still be there. So thanks for attending. Okay, going to the next slide, we'll introduce ourselves. We do have one of our all-stars in the classroom and that works with us quite a bit, Dr. Heather Young. If you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Heather Young. I am an instructional assistant professor in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences at the University of Florida. I teach in the Agricultural Education and Communication Department. And in that role, I roughly see about 700 students on a calendar year. And those classes are mixed between being in person and in an online format. And so I've been using Yellowdig for the last year or so, 2 years. And so I have really enjoyed the value that it brings for my online students specifically. Thank you.
Wonderful, good. And we're going to hear a lot from Heather about creating those conditions for voice and agency in online courses. Debra Olbeding, I'm the Senior Success Manager at Yellowdig. Been here about almost 4 years. Before coming to Yellowdig, I was an instructor in the Masters of Education program for so many years, then instructional design, ed tech, and now I'm here at Yellowdig helping folks understand what Yellowdig is all about and how to enjoy using Yellowdig. And I have my co-workers with me, Allie and Vicky. Allie?
Hi everyone, I'm Alessandra. I'm a success partner here at Yellowdig. I've been here for a year almost. I can't believe it was so fast. And I have this background in education, 20 years working in education. I started as an English instructor, English as a second language instructor here in Brazil. And I'm very happy to be here with you. I'll be in the chat with my friend Vicky, helping you if you have any questions while Deb and Heather will be talking about agency.
Yes, and then
sorry. Yes, hi everyone. I'm Vicky here as success partner at Yellowdig. Same thing, educational background, still in the classroom with my students. So yeah, love everything about it. So I want to keep being a teacher forever. I'm going to be as well here in the chat to help out with any questions or things that come up during the conversation. So hi everyone.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We'll go to our next slide here. Basically, why student voice matters. And we're going to hear Heather's real life experience, I like to call it, because she, of course, is in the classroom working on agency and student voice on a daily basis. And so her experience that she's had and what she's found out. So again, we're very thankful. So Heather, we have this broad question, right? What does student voice mean in your context? If you want to clarify that a little bit, and then we're also going to talk about like, when have you seen students most engaged, and also what made that possible? So kind of a loaded topic to start with, but we can kind of skinny it down as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a million different examples or definitions of what student voice can mean to you, and depending on the context or the class that you're teaching or what you're asking the students to do on their own. But I think in my classes, what I've been able to identify as that student voice, whether it be in my oral communication class or in my research and business writing class, is when the students are able to really connect with the content and be able to show what their own experiences are. And that way there, they can make that learning experience their own. They're embodying what that means to them. And so them being able to share what their imaginative interpretations of that content mean. And so you can ask the same question to 4 different people and get 4 very different responses when they're open enough and willing enough to be able to make that connection their own in a true sense. And then when it comes to when you actually see that happen and that engagement really clicks with that student voice aspect, it's that aha moment where they're just like, oh, I remember you talking about this in class. And then I went and I did this activity out in public on my personal time. And then after I reflected on it, I was like, there's so many connections going on between what we're discussing in our course and then what we're experiencing in real life. And so that's when you have them hooked. That's when you're getting their full undivided attention, and they're really taking to heart the information that you're sharing with them and making it their own and making it their true meaning.
Wonderful. And I love a couple things that you said, the true meaning and connecting to the content. I mean, even folks that are not students at the time, even if you're having that conversation at meetings or conferences, when you can connect, right, and relate, it just goes to a whole nother level of learning and conversation. Great. So what did make that possible for you to have those connections made in your class, and how they could make those on their own?
Yeah. So the first thing is that you really have to be willing to try something and have it either be understanding that it's going to work or it's not going to work. If you only stay with what you know, you're going to get stagnant and your course isn't going to change. The information that you're sharing isn't going to change, and you might not connect with the next group of students because they're changing. We know that for sure. Anybody in the world is really adapting every day with how they see the world, their perspective on it, etc. And so being able to be comfortable enough to try something and see if it works, see if it clicks, and it might not click with this group, but it might click with the next group. And so not being afraid of trying it again. If you try it once and it doesn't work, don't give up on it. Having different, just like we do with universal design for learning, is have different modalities of the same information. And so being able to give students various examples, put it in different contexts, and have the same underlying meaning. And then having different visual examples too of what it might actually look like if you were to experience something in real life, I think is a big key piece of being able to actually get all of that stuff to happen. But definitely being open and willing to take student feedback, especially. So if you ask your students what they think about something and then you don't do anything with their feedback, it sends a very clear message that you're kind of just asking the questions to ask the questions, that you don't have that full intention to actually help the students in their learning experience and be there to support them and guide them along the way.
Right, right. So really allowing the students to have some say in what they learn and how they learn and how they are assessed. I love that. Back in
I'm
the day.
sorry. Sorry, we have a question here in the chat, and I think it's nice if we can clarify. I'm sorry. So they're saying, Cynthia is asking, would you mind clarifying what you mean by student agency?
Okay. Heather, would
I
you?
thought it was better to talk about that like live than in the chat.
Right. Heather,
Yeah.
would you take that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I think when we're talking about agency, we're talking about that ownership. Students taking ownership of their learning experience, and they go into it knowing what it is that they want to get out of the opportunity. And that's where it really shows the connection that you either have or don't have with your students. And that kind of goes into a little bit of when you see like a traditional discussion board, and the conversation, the first one that posts has a really great conversation, has a really great point. And then when students get to the last minutes that post their questions, you don't see as much of a good conversation coming from that, because everybody's already shared that previously. And so they don't get that opportunity to be able to take ownership of their own opinion, because they feel like they'd either be repeating something that's already there, or not being original, I guess is the way to put it. And so if we have students that are really accepting the information that we're sharing and being able to make those connections on their own with the content, and what like the real life examples, like what we talked about with that student voice and engagement piece, that's where I think you get that real agency. And that's where the students really own their educational experience. They're asking for feedback, or they're asking for more information or more examples on how or where they might be able to make that connection. They're truly invested in what it is that they're learning in that course, and not just doing it to check the box and get the grade and move on.
Right, right. And I think, as you talked earlier, finding those experiences that they could connect to, right? And letting them share those experiences for others to connect to as well. They kind of feel heard. Again, they have that voice. So, okay, great. Let's move on. We're talking about the conditions to enable agency. So, it sounds great. And we always want to have a place where they can own their learning. They can own basically sharing their real life experiences and connecting with other students. But which of these conditions that we have listed here, Heather, do you think is most often missing?
I think the most often missing piece of this is really that safety part. It's one thing to be able to share all the resources, share all the content, have all of the presentations of bringing in different speakers to be able to adapt to different student perspectives. And you have the discussions where you're getting a lot of feedback from your peers, and you have your in-class presentations, or even in an online environment, you have your group projects. And so all of that's built into the course. And one of the things that a lot of students share in their feedback is that they either didn't feel like they were getting the support or the guidance that they needed from their instructor, or even from fellow classmates. And so that safety net of being able to share their honest opinion really enables that agency and that student voice to really come out. And so if you make it very clear that it's a safe space, ideas are open for interpretation, even if it is something that you don't agree with, everybody still has the right to share what their interpretation is of a certain topic. And so by creating that safety network, or safety zone, I guess, of being inside the class and knowing that it's okay to have a different opinion from someone else, but be able to listen and interpret and understand and have an open mind when it comes to the opposing opinions, is really where it makes a big difference. And I think that's when you really see the students thrive in an online environment, especially because they kind of feel like they're a number or just a name on a screen sometimes. And so being able to actually get that solid connection and having that feeling of that it's a safe environment, I think really helps encourage that open-mindedness and open to the learning.
Right, right. And within that safe space, as you talked, Heather, I mean, students do feel valued, right? And supported. by the other students in the class and also the instructor. And I know you have a great story about a student feeling that it was a safe environment in your online class because she was nervous about presenting in one of your classes, which was public speaking, I believe, but then got that encouragement and kind of that strength to go ahead and do what she needed to do because of the support that she had. Would you like to share that story?
Yeah, absolutely. This was my ultimate, like, aha, most memorable teaching moment whenever you get asked those questions. What's the most memorable or enjoyable thing that you've done in your educational career? I had a student in one of the oral communication labs that I personally taught. So we have like 135 students in that class typically, and we have them broke up into different sections of 18 students. So it's small enough to have a community, but still efficient in time management wise. And this student came in and she sat in the very back far corner of the classroom, didn't contribute to conversation unless she was specifically called on or it was her turn to do her introduction. And unprovoked after that lab experience and me setting up the expectations and the community rules and standards of how our lab would operate, she had taken to the Yellowdig discussion board and the platform, and she asked just a simple question of, what are your thoughts on your first week of labs? And she shared that she was incredibly nervous coming into the oral communication course, that amongst, I think, almost everybody on this call probably would say that's not the first thing that you're going to volunteer to do, is to get up and do a public speaking event of some sort. And a lot of students really put this class off because they're so scared to do it, because they're scared of making a mistake or sounding silly, looking silly, being judged. And so when we had that very simple conversation of, this is that, again, building that safety into this course and being vulnerable and learning from that experience. And so in her post, she had made a comment about how that first lab experience really helped her realize that it's okay to be nervous, that everybody else was nervous and scared to be able to try something different or uncomfortable. And she asked what her peers thought. And within a couple of hours, she had 35 plus posts replying to hers that, oh, me too's were coming out a lot. And then there were a few students that were offering suggestions on how to maybe overcome some of your fears and your nerves before a presentation or about the class in general. And so she had not really looked at Yellowdig until our next lab. And I had talked to her. She was one of the first ones to get there. And I had asked her if she had noticed what her post did. And she wasn't really aware of it. So she looked and she's like, oh my gosh. And from that lab on, she had a completely different perspective, completely different personality. She participated and she managed to make solid improvements throughout the entire course. And I promise you that it was because of that conversation that she had and how she had different support networks that she wouldn't have known about ahead of time.
Oh my gosh, I love that story too. That's my aha moment as
Yeah.
well. And I think, we're just saying, when students do feel supported and valued in their learning environment, right? They're willing to make themselves vulnerable, to try something new, kind of step outside their comfort zone because they have that, like you said, support net. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, how are we doing? Do we need any questions we need to address that are in the chat that we'd like to talk about? Vicki and
Yes,
Al?
we do have one from Chelsea. Let me see if we can answer it. So it says, when innovation or trying something new leads to negative student reviews on course, what are next steps, even when these new experiences are explained and by student vote?
Okay,
Great, great question.
it is. Any feedback on that, Heather, that maybe you have experienced, or setting the expectations right up front so they kind of know what to expect and how to be successful? Or what's your experience?
Yeah, no, this is a great question. And so the very first time that I introduced Yellowdig to my students, there were 1 million questions. They're like, well, when are you going to tell us what we need to post? when are you going to give us our next discussion for the next week so I can start thinking about it? And I had to break that training that I think we've kind of done with the traditional discussion board of post once and then reply twice, or this is the topic of our discussion. And so having that more natural conversation was a humongous barrier. And our midterm evaluations that we have done through our university showed that. They were like, I don't get Yellowdig. I don't understand this. I'm confused. And then I had a conversation right after we got the results back in our next lecture. And I asked the students, so A, you always do the reflection or the evaluations, and the students think that the instructors never look at them. Some people probably don't look at them. I'm one of those that actually look at them. And I shared that I reviewed the evaluation feedback and I see that this is an area of concern. So I know what we had on our topic of discussion for the day, but we're going to pause that for a minute and we're going to talk about what we're dealing with Yellowdig. And so even though on the first day I walked them through the entire process from the front page of our Canvas course shell all the way through into Yellowdig to actually making a post. We did all of that on the first day. And so I went back to it and I did the same exact thing over again and walked the students through. And I told them, interrupt me anytime you have a question or a thought that comes into your mind. And it was great. It was like 45 minutes out of my 2-hour lecture that we spent going back over all of the specific little details. And students were asking, well, why does it do this? Why does it do that? And so after I discovered that the best way to explain Yellowdig to my students without having a bunch of questions come up ended up being using the term academic Facebook. As soon as I said academic Facebook, the light bulbs were exploding. They're like, oh, I get it. So we just post about what we're thinking. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And so the end of the semester evaluations did a very big shift of having the Yellowdig confusion being a hindering point to this is the greatest tool that I have ever used in my class. I never thought that I would actually say that I enjoyed doing a class discussion online. And so that was the biggest thing, was having the patience to be able to kind of listen to what the students are actually struggling with versus what we might think that they're struggling with. And so I think that answers the question. And if I missed a piece of the question, feel free to remind me.
Wonderful. I mean, again, it goes back to our focus of this session, right? Giving them the voice and giving them an enabling agency. And by doing that, it just totally turned around on their feelings for, what you were using in this case in Yellowdig. So nice. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. So we have the reality. So which are the barriers in online environments? So I'm sure those that are in this session today probably look at those three: the lack of connection, lack of flexibility, and having a safe space. Heather, when you look at these options here, and I think on the previous slide, you talked about the most important one being having a safe space, right? So we pretty much have that one covered. But the other two, lack of connection and lack of flexibility. Would you like to talk a little bit more about those two being barriers in an online class that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So the lack of connection is definitely one that comes up a lot. The students feel like they are just a face on a screen and that they don't have that individualized connection with their instructors. And I actually had a meeting with a student in my writing class, which is completely online. We don't have any live joint meetings. And she had made the statement that I don't have you as my TA. I have 12 TAs for that class. There's 235 students in that writing class. And she's like, without you sending out that message the other day to have us reach out to you specifically if there is any doubt in our mind or any question that we're having about an assignment, to just reach out. I learned that there was a group chat going around and they were airing frustrations about my writing class. And so it's like, if I don't know about it, I'm not part of the conversation, how am I going to fix anything? And by literally sending that announcement out to my students that we weren't even using Yellowdig in that course, and is sending that announcement out to those students, they realized that I actually cared about what they were learning in the class. I cared about making my course better. I cared about their impression that they were getting and the information that they were learning, and I wanted it to be an impactful experience and a beneficial experience. So she's like, I never would have wanted to email you or felt like I should email you if you weren't the one grading my papers and I didn't have anything positive to say, because why would I want to draw negative attention to myself? Like, well, that's the problem. That's the problem that we have with a lot of online courses, is that they are either really big and you don't have enough support to be able to help each student feel like they are actually being connected with their instructor that they're listening to lectures from. And so being able to create that connection now gives that student an entirely different perspective. And she's like, I never thought this conversation would go the way that it's going, and it's going in a great direction. So that's somewhere where taking the time to be able to build that connection really makes the biggest difference. And so with Yellowdig, the students have that opportunity to be able, and this kind of goes into that flexibility piece, because I think if you don't have the connection, then they aren't feeling that flexibility, and that it's literally tunnel vision. This is what we're learning, and this is the only way that we're going to learn it. And so being able to have the ability to feel safe enough to be able to go out on a limb and take their own different perspective of something that might not be the standard quo, and have that be acceptable when it connects back to what we're talking about, that's when the real online learning happens, in that sense of where you would almost be able to mimic group conversation in a class where you think, pair, share. And so it's hard to replicate that in an online environment. And I think being able to have that natural, organic conversation and encouraging that kind of conversation is where you can kind of take care of both of those with one attempt.
Wonderful. And it's amazing what you learn sometimes in an online class. You take it to your life experience as an adult, right? Connection and flexibility.
We know that on a daily basis.
Yes, for life. Yeah, do we have any other questions that we need to address, Allie and Vicky?
Yes, we do. And
Okay.
I believe, Deb, you can answer this question, and Heather as well, because you have amazing experience with Yellowdig, and I believe it's going to be nice if you two answer this question. So it's Teresa. She asks, I'm an instructional designer, and I use a lot of these same strategies for our course designs. However, faculty buy-in or adoption is an issue. Faculty see it as too much work, as we know, right? They complain that students just don't use the tools and don't care. So why implement these ideas? Do you have any ideas about conversations we can have with faculty to get them to buy in those ideas?
Okay, I think Heather, you and I can both tap on this a little bit, okay? Because I'm going to tap in as when I was an instructor, right? Not working for Yellowdig. And I tell this story quite often. I taught in the Masters of Education program for many, many years, and it wasn't a face-to-face course. And then afterwards, I would go to the cafeteria and have lunch with these students, a lot of them. Those connections and conversations we had at that table in the cafeteria, yes, about the class we just got out of, course relevant conversations, is what I would have used Yellowdig for. But we also talked about student teaching experiences, about summative and formative assessments that they could use in their teaching experience. So what I'm saying, the long and short of it is, all instructors probably, and this is the reason I was an instructor for 25 years at Baker, probably want to connect with their students, right? And when you connect with their students, as Heather just talked about, you have a connection where they feel the agency and voice because they're heard. And I love the idea, like, is it too much work? Well, just the long and short, I don't know if, and you've worked with instructors, grading discussion boards is a lot of work, right? And it's why I dreaded Monday morning. But Heather, you have an interesting story how Yellowdig just took off.
Yeah.
Remember that? And so from experience, please share with Teresa kind of how she may talk to faculty about this not being a lot of work. I think you have a great example.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like that picture perfect, couldn't have asked for a better opportunity to present itself.
Oh, because you're like, yeah, I haven't even checked in yet. And I'm like, oh, okay. So tell the story.
Yes, exactly. So to get started, I met with Debra. We went over my syllabus. She gave me some ideas for the topic tags. And I wish I was joking when I say this. It was an hour, maybe. And I think there was a lot of visiting and socializing that was going on in between there. So if we actually like cut it down to just the specific focus of what our meeting was that day, it probably would have been like less than 45 minutes to be able to entirely get from a completely bare bones, nothing done in a community to literally implemented into the course, hooked up, ready to go, waiting for the first student to log in. And so that part of it is a lot of the selling point is that you're not going to have to invest weeks or months to be able to get something put together to be able to have it ready to go for your students. So there's one point, very easy to get started with. The second piece of it is when I literally was figuring out how to use Yellowdig on my own, kind of what's my style going to be. Like I had the suggested post, tweaked it a little bit for that introduction piece, put up a little intro video of who I was as the instructor instead of having it buried into my syllabus that, you know, students really don't like reading very often. And so being able to kind of set the stage of what I was looking for those couple of introduction posts at the beginning. And I let students load into it, didn't open it up until the day before our first lecture. And so our classes, I think that semester started on a Wednesday and then our lecture was the following Monday. So there were 4 or 5 days there where students would have been able to get in there, play around with it and see what it's about. I remember opening it up and seeing it, there were already 100 posts. And I emailed Debra immediately. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? How am I going to go through all of these posts and be able to really show my engagement and my connectedness of this into this community? And she's like, well, you can make your decision. You can either try to sit there and reply to every single one of them, or you scroll through like you would on any kind of social media and you can look at the ones that really catch your attention. Those are the ones where you can really get conversations started, continuing conversations, praising a student for putting something really brave, honest, telling, etc., exciting out there for the rest of the group to be able to see. And so literally, I'm not joking when I say that it was not difficult to get that conversation started. And so it took off on its own. So I think that that's something that is it shouldn't be considered a barrier. And I think the best way to be able to get over some of that negative mindset is to show them an example of a community that's going. At one point, we had a conversation ratio of 11 and almost 12, and the aiming point I think is 8 something. And so that was with very little work on my side. It was the students taking over and taking ownership of where they wanted the conversations to go. And so when I showed them that, when I show other faculty members here at UF, I do different presentations at different points for professional development and learning opportunities using online tools. I pull up the network graph, and that is a great way to be able to show like, hey, you have a really large enrollment class. I get it. You don't have time to sit there to respond to every single student. I get it. You don't want to go through and grade the discussion posts. I get it. And so you pull up that network graph and you're like, that student, that student, and that student have 3 connections. Those are the students that you need to reach out to first to be able to see if they need help or if something's going on with the platform and they can't access it. And that's the selling point right there. That's how you get them over that negative mind to begin with.
Right. Thanks, Heather. And I think this slide we have up now is just what we've been talking about and the question that Teresa asked. So thank you for that, Teresa. And also, I know a big selling point sometimes is there is no grading in Yellowdig. It lessens the stress of grading. The points are figured out by the social presence of these students, the comments that they make, the quality of the comments that are made. And so when they're looking at a piece of technology and they're like, oh yeah, I don't have time to deal with that. But I'm sure, Heather, you can kind of piggyback off this too. The time that it saves where you were reading the same answer to a discussion question, how many times, and seeing if they replied twice. And Heather mentioned conversation ratio 11. What that basically means, conversation ratio in discussion board is two comments, one post. So when we see something like 11, there's a lot of conversation that is digging deeper, AKA Yellowdig, into that concept. Because they're going back and forth and commenting and expanding and connecting to the content that they're talking about. So wonderful. Okay. Do we have any other questions or should we keep going? Thank you for that, Teresa.
Going for now. No specific questions.
Okay. Okay, so role of technology. I mean, I think we've covered this pretty much, using technology to make students' voices visible. Again, when we talk about voice and agency, you've got to have a platform or a place for them to experience that, right? You can't say, okay, I want to do this, but then not give them a platform or a space, like you said, to feel safe. So anything you'd like to add with this, Heather, or you'd like to add a little bit more to this information?
Yeah, I've got a really cool student experience that happened this semester. And so a student was discussing in the Yellowdig platform about nerves for their upcoming presentation. So we were about halfway through the semester at this point, and you know how typically there'll be like a couple of suggestions like, oh, well, record yourself and then watch your presentation or give it to your dog. Those kind of comments were existent. But this one student noticed, and he had shared a link to a video about super communicators. And then, without any prompting, he had emailed me and he had said, I noticed that a big struggle point with a lot of my peers on our Yellowdig conversation this week revolved around being nervous about the assignment for the week was an advocacy assignment where you go up to random people and ask them questions about the science issue that they're covering for that semester. And so they were nervous about starting those conversations, not having people just tell them that they don't want to talk to them. And so he said that I felt like I was able to make a difference for some of the people based on their comments because I took the chance and shared a resource that I found valuable. And so a student being able to share those experiences with, and I think that really hits on this agency piece of that student took it upon themselves to be able to share something they thought was helpful, and then was pleasantly surprised by the responses that he received from the classmates in that discussion, and then felt supported enough or encouraged enough to reach out and share that experience with me specifically. And so I've never had that happen before. And it probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that kind of community established. So.
Oh, I love that example. Thank you. So good. Yeah, I mean, bottom line is hearing them, seeing them, acknowledging the students, and having a space to do that is so valuable. Okay, from theory to practice. Heather, would you like to share this information here? This is probably how your community looks, right?
Yes, so it's really interesting. I saw at one point there was a question about research being done on some of the data. And so our instructional designer that we have here at UF for our department is actually using some of the Yellowdig experience data for her master's project. And so stay tuned for that paper to come out eventually. But what was really interesting is she compared my class that I am very almost laissez-faire style when it comes to the discussion. I give them their topic tags. So this is kind of that the instructor side of it there at the very top of the graph is kind of that topic tag availability that students can pick from. And so I don't tell them what to post. And there are some classes that they were trying to take a different approach at how to incorporate Yellowdig into their course. And they tried to say, give the students that this is our conversation that we're going to have for this week. And so it was very different in how soon the students posted. So that those procrastinator, those reds humans versus those go-getters, and where they showed up into those post categories. And so giving them the opportunity to be able to post what they wanted and make their own discussion showed a higher conversation ratio than the one that was more of a prescriptive approach. And so I think that really speaks to where that instructor piece happens. And so obviously when you have an instructor post that says, this is what I want you to do, you're going to get a whole bunch of students right on board that are on top of the game and that they want to do well in the class. But if you look at where the students starter conversations happen are very shortly after, but look at the connections that are made between each one of those different posts. And so you can see that it extends a lot farther. And then if you need to kind of boost a conversation, you can interject yourself into that conversation. But with the student-led posts, those are the ones that seem like they have a more impactful conversation amongst the community themselves. And so because it's the students talking about what they experience in their lives, and they all are very similar in age for the most part. And so what I see or what I think might not necessarily align with the trend for the moment. And so the students being able to run their own conversation tends to have a much better continual conversation. And so we also emphasize the idea that it's not a conversation starter, but it's a conversation continuer. And so that's where you'll see with that instructor one at the top, it kind of stops, and you don't see all the steps and the staggers as the week goes on. And so when we have a different conversation every week or every period, it makes a difference in whether students are still going back to old conversations. And so I have noticed that there are more students that are rehashing old topics as we move through the semester, when they're recognizing, oh, that connection piece comes into play. This is a key element to this final presentation product. And so I think that's where a lot of the being able to create that continuance, and that this isn't just our topic for the week and then we're dropping it and not talking about it again until the end of the semester, and making it more of like a live conversation.
Right. And again, the title of our session, giving them a voice and agency, right? And having that place to get to have their voice be heard. Yeah, and one thing that always connects when I see this as well is those dotted lines. And like you said, Heather, like it's not like just this week one or module one, we're just going to talk about this and don't connect it anytime after this, we're done, which makes no sense in the learning process, right? We want them to connect and scaffold those ideas to construct that knowledge of the content that we're teaching. So that's what those dotted lines show, as Heather mentioned. You bring it back. You can bring topics that you talked about in week four and connect them to week 7. The better that it'd be. So yeah, so thank you. So that's a little bit from theory to practice. Moving on to our next key takeaways. So as we look from compliance to community, if you think about one idea that you would like to try next, or a great or aha moment, as Heather calls it, of a takeaway from this session, what would that be? You can even share it in the chat if you'd like, or if you would like to come off or share it with Ali and Vicky and they can share it. But I think one idea, I always like these sessions to be kind of action items. How do you think, and what would you like to do to really help students have that voice and agency in your online class, or you have ideas that have worked? And looking at, some of the topics there, agency begins with trust. As Heather gave us that idea about the student in her oral communication class, she had that trust, right? She got that trust from the peers. And so her confidence was built quite a bit, just because I think you said she had like 35 replies or comments. It isn't a feature. I love that. It's a culture. And again, having that space to create that culture so they feel safe, because as we talked, that's the main point for them to have a voice and agency. And then small design shifts that can unlock deeper motivation. I love when Teresa asked the comment about, kind of getting a buy-in from faculty to use different things and try different things. And the story that Heather gave with, how we worked together, and really a 45-minute session, she was good to go. And then she got in, it's like, oh my gosh, this is taking. That's motivating in itself, right? And I'm sure, Heather, you kind of look forward, or you do look forward to going in to chatting with your students, right? To have that, conversation and connection. So
Yeah, absolutely.
getting close to the end of time. So any questions that we need to answer before we wrap this up? And again, I'd like to thank you all so much for coming today. Heather, as always, thank you. I have been lucky enough to work with Heather for, I guess, a couple years now, and it's truly been a joy. So thank you.
Absolutely. Same here. And I think if I can just share just one teeny tiny little snippet at the end here, is that small shifts is the biggest key. You don't want to try and flip something upside down and do it immediately. Do little steps, take baby steps. And when you're going through trying something new, and that transparency, I swear to you, is key, where you got to tell the students that you're trying something new, that this isn't polished and done over and over again, and you've done this for years. Be honest with them. And that really sets the tone for this experience to work as well as it does, is being able to build that trust and transparency with your students. So definitely that small start, small pieces is the key.
Yes. Wonderful. All right. Anything in the chat we need to address? Allie and Vicky, or are we good?
No, I wrote our emails on the chat. So if anyone would like to connect, we are there. And thank you very much for your attention and partnership.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, on behalf of USDLA and National Distance Learning Week, thank you so much. We've tried to balance this. I know we're saying AI, the great disequilibrium, but at the same point in time, human-centered is the is the other side. That's where we have to do the balance. And thank you for bringing the balance in for us today. So thank you so much. We hope we will see everybody tomorrow. We are doing a morning show, and everybody who's been to morning show, I should say daily show. Sorry, I'm in Colorado. 9 a.m. is still morning for me. Okay, we're doing the daily show, and in the daily show, that's where everybody can come discuss. You can come and discuss what you've heard here today in this session. You can see how it balances out this whole AI disequilibrium, and we hope you join us. And thank you very much, everyone. So Valerie, it goes back to you.
To me, yay!
Yes.
No, I also just want to thank everybody, especially our friends and partners at Yellowdig for coming in today and demonstrate. And I could not agree more on the whole set the expectations. Those of us, I know there's a number of us who work with some we'll say emerging technologies and some things like gamification that are not the norm. And we had the same experience of you kind of have to warn them. You kind of have to say, this is going to be different. You're going to be okay. So I really appreciated that. But yes, I will hang out for a few minutes after I stop the recording in case anybody does have any questions, comments, or anything that they just don't want to say on camera, and that's okay. So we'll do that. But thank you all for attending today. Thank you to our speakers. And as Kay said, please come back tomorrow. And as I was furiously getting messages the entire time you all were talking, yes, the recordings, you will get the recordings, I promise.
I know.
Oh my gosh,
know.
we will get the recordings to you. Just give us a second. We just need to make sure they finish. You all are still talking. I can't even give you the recording yet. Y'all are still talking and they're asking me for it. So I promise you, we will send you information. It will be in your mailbox Monday morning when you wake up and you're having your tea or coffee or whatever. It'll be there for you with all the information, with the links and everything. So I know people will continue to email me, and that's okay. I love getting emails from everybody. But I promise you, we are working on it. The elves, they're in the background. They're doing it. They're doing their thing.
Yes, and I wanted to say that yes, today, and we'll continue this on. We'll be asking people. You can post your LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll get more followers. You'll see other people that you can follow. So feel free to continue with that. And you'll be and everybody, you'll be getting things from me too. Okay.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Kate. Yes, a big part of this is we want you all to network. We want you to meet new
Mhm.
people and make new collaborators. And I've seen such amazing chats. I remind people every day you can save the chat and take it with you so that you have those links immediately available to you if you want to go back and look at some of the great resources that people were putting in, or grab somebody's LinkedIn or any of that stuff. So please, in the chat, go up to the top to the three dots, right to the right of where it says 2025 NDLW. There's three little dots. You can click on that. You can say save chat and you can take it with you free of charge.
And, and I was gonna say, okay, another LinkedIn thing real quickly. If you have a free account like me, and I do free just about everything, okay, I have run out of messages. So if you just get a thing from me that does not include a message, it's not because I don't want to chat with you. It's I've used mine. I used my free ones up for today. But thank you, everybody.
Great point. Yes, I had a few of those too. I think that I was just like, yeah, just send it.
Yes.
But I assume that perhaps timing would indicate to the people that because they had just put their LinkedIn address into our chat and then got a request, that hopefully they would say, oh,
So
this is probably one of those NDLW people.
people.
I'll leave an
Yes.
adjective off. You can fill in the adjective for yourself. Wacky, quirky. I don't know. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not ascribing that to anyone else.
And Yvonne does have a question. Prior day chats.
The chats are part of the recordings.
Okay.
The chats do come with the recordings. That's a great thing. And I'm glad I didn't pause the recording, because that way we captured that for people to know. But I will stop the recording now just in case anybody does have any other questions.
I know. And I agree. I think